Welcome to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. This how-to podcast is focused on empowering you to live your best life by incorporating the principles of the law of attraction, NLP, meditation, and other spiritual teachings. I'm Jeannie Hall, a certified NLP practitioner and creative empowerment coach. Let's get you empowered. Hello and welcome to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. This is episode 3, The Point of Polarity. And today I'm going to be talking about things that might be causing you to struggle in your life. So if you are one of those people out there right now who is going through a difficult time, this podcast is for you. Now, polarity, in the way I'll be discussing it today, is about two opposing sides of the same coin. And if we look at everything as having both a positive side and a negative side, a lot like positive and negative charges that you might study about in scientific disciplines, then every situation has both. And in other words, this means that there's always a silver lining to any cloud. So if you look at it as even if you're going through a really rough time, a really difficult situation, a very hard thing to get through, just know that there's always a flip side, an opposite side to that. There's always something good that will come of it. And even in the most horrendous things, and I know we don't want to think that way because it's almost like we're bringing it on. I know I used to think that way. I used to think, I don't want to think there's anything good that's going to come out of like something really horrible happening because I don't want to bring it to me. And I don't think that's what happens. But I know some people get a little superstitious about stuff like that, or they get worried about things like that. But the truth of the matter is, both of those sides of the coin exist anyway at all times. That's just one of the universal laws. That's just the way it is. And it's silly to be fearful of it. You know, it's not helpful to be fearful of it. Just accept it and know that no matter what you're going through and how difficult it is, you can come out the other side, especially if you focus on the more positive aspects of it. And that's just a really important thing to remember. And I'm a believer in the law of attraction, and I always personally work to look at the positive or bright side of things anyway. But I know sometimes when it's really bad, it's hard to do that. So I'm going to talk about that today. But something I really didn't realize until recently is that the law of attraction is not the only universal law at work in our lives. Like I mentioned, that whole polarity thing is also a universal law. There are many, many, many of the universal laws out there, but the one I'm going to focus on today is the law of polarity. And you've probably already experienced this several times in your life. Maybe things are going along just fine, you're doing great, everything's awesome, just like the Lego song, right? Then bam, you get hit with something just horrendous. And it could be anything that hits you. It could be an injury, it could be an illness, it could be that someone betrayed you, it could be that your significant other breaks up with you. It could be that you lose your job and your livelihood. It could be that you get into an accident of some sort, a car accident or other accident. It could be something really large and unexpected, maybe something expensive breaks down on you at the worst time possible. It could be that someone you love leaves you or passes away. And these are all things that we do not want, not ever. And when we experience these things, almost always, if not always, we will be stunned and upset by this. And some of these things may be relatively minor and temporary things, but sometimes these are permanent things that happen. And the thing that we have to remember, or that we need to try to remember, and this is what will help us the most when we're in the midst of dealing with them, is that we need to understand that this bad thing happened for a purpose. And that purpose is your own growth. And the thing about growth is that it can be very painful at times. But in the end, we become more of who we really are when we face these things. And I'd like to share a story of my own recent incident with polarity. So one of the changes, and just remember this, no matter how many people you listen to and how many people we look up to, and all the people we might call gurus or our heroes or our heroines out there, they're all just human beings and they've all made mistakes. The difference is if they're super successful, then they've been at this for longer than you have, is probably the only difference. They've been working on their own personal growth and development and their own spirituality probably a little longer than you have. So they might be more successful in manifesting what they've wanted in their lives, but it's not that you can't do the same thing. It's just that they've been doing it longer, so they've had more practice and they've probably manifested more things than you have so far. So one of the changes I personally want to make in my life at the point I'm at right now is I want to leave my day job and become fully self-employed. And another part of that, another thing I'm working to change, and I've made a lot of progress on this one, is working on my health overall. And if you ever listened to my old podcast, The Writing in Your Jammies, at one point I was 233 pounds at 5'7", which meant I was obese. I had high blood pressure. I had, of course, high blood sugar. I was very unhealthy and was in danger of shortening my life. I became diabetic, and I'm only 44, so that's kind of a big deal. Way too young to be experiencing those sorts of health problems, especially all on top of each other. And so I worked on my health and have been working on it for about a year and a half now. And so to these ends, I've also, on the self-employment part, I've written 6 books. I've become a certified coach. I've begun to create an online course, and I've lost 50 of the 70 pounds I want to lose, and am reducing my medication and trying to eliminate it. Another extremely important thing that I did to accomplish all of those things, by the way, is I work on keeping my mindset positive. I try and keep myself in as happy a place as possible. And granted, it's not always possible. I do fail, like everyone does. I'm a human being. But it is my goal, basically, is to make sure that I'm doing my best to stay positive and keep that part of myself going. So I try and stay as happy and content as possible. The reason for that is not just because it feels good, and it does, but also because I know that what I am attracting is my point of attraction. And if my point of attraction is higher and happier, then it makes manifesting what I want much easier. But as I said, there are other laws in action besides just the law of attraction. So I kept working and working to have something in my business take off and to continue to lose weight. And for some reason, I kept hitting walls. And this was all very recently, within the past couple of months. So the first thing that happened that kind of showed me something was going on was that I was shooting videos in order to see if I could do an online course and create some different things. And all the videos came out looking really crappy. Like they were either super fuzzy or it didn't record at all. Like I would have 10 or 11 minutes of video and then it would just disappear. And it would be like I never shot it in the first place. And then whenever I was exercising, I jog and I walk on a daily basis. And whenever I was just walking, I wasn't even jogging at the time, I fell down on the pavement. I was walking on the road and I fell on the pavement and I literally landed on my face. I scraped a little area above my lip and almost blacked my eye. So, wow, yeah, that was crazy. And then a little while after that, I came down with the stomach flu, And I felt so physically off after I got past the worst part of that I began to experience signs of depression after about a week and a half of being sick. And then a little bit before I had the flu, I received news that the company I work for, that I have my day job with, which is still my only source of income pretty much, is in danger of bankruptcy, the company I work for. And due to this outcome, I learned that no one would be receiving a raise. Of course, that includes me. And then the most recent thing that happened was that even though I put in a lot of overtime, like every week I put in a lot of overtime at my job, and I essentially, because we've been shorthanded, I've been doing the work of at least 2 to 3 people on a daily basis, I received a negative annual evaluation. And all of this occurred within just the past few weeks. And some might look at all those things, and of course it could be worse, but there's no denying that those are all negative things, right? So some might look at that string of events and say it was just bad luck. They might call it unfair. They might say, well, that's just life. Some might look at that and say, well, what the hell, right? And that's kind of what camp I was in. I was like, what the hell's going on? I work to be positive and all this crap is happening to me. What's going on? But what I've come to realize is that what was happening was the law of polarity at work. And I believe all this has been happening to get my attention. This is about me comprehending that the universe is giving me a message, but I wasn't hearing it. So it kept sending me the message in different ways over and over and over again. And I think I've finally received the message. And what I believe the message is this: let go. And when I received a negative evaluation at my day job, initially I was very, very upset. And I was still somewhat unwell from the flu, like I said, and I was being told that all of my hard work, I basically work myself very hard and have a lot of stress with the job and physically work a lot of hours and things like that. So to be told that what I was doing wasn't good enough and that I was not, basically that I was failing at my job, according to this person's opinion, well, you can imagine I didn't take it well. And my reaction involved lots of tears and then full-on weeping. And I'm always more emotional when I'm sick and have less control over my emotions when I'm not feeling well. So that happened in front of the person who was giving me the evaluation. And for 2 days, I didn't see this person. And I considered, almost 2 days, day and a half, I considered formally protesting the evaluation. I just felt like most of my life I felt like I was a doormat and didn't stand up for myself, so I thought that would be what I needed to do. I needed to stand up for myself and protest this. The problem was every time I thought about writing this formal letter of protest and going up the chain of command, I got upset all over again. And I felt so terrible thinking about all this that I realized that focusing on this possible protest was just making me feel worse. It was bringing all that emotion up again and making me feel really the shitty crappy that I've talked about on my former podcast. And I think it's because what you focus on expands. That's an absolute truth. What you focus on gets bigger. And what I was expanding was my own misery. So then I thought about just forgiving it and focusing on thinking positive about my future of coaching so that I would manifest that quickly, more quickly than I have been. And when I thought about that horrible, heavy feeling that I had been having just drifted away. And I felt so much better, so much lighter. And I knew I had my answer from the universe. Now, if you were in the same boat as I was, maybe protesting it would have felt good and light to you. because we're all different and unique beings on this planet. But for me, what felt good and what felt light was just letting it go. And the ironic thing is, the one who gave me the evaluation brought it up to me again without me ever creating that letter, without me ever addressing it myself. And I was able to state how hurt I was by that evaluation and make my own case without getting upset and without focusing on it any more than a minute or two. So I got to be heard without focusing on it too strongly and dredging up the bad memory of it again. And after I said my piece, I felt monumentally better. I felt like it was all washed away. And now I realize that what is going to help me is whenever I let my emotional state be my barometer of which direction to take. So if I'm looking at a crossroads and two decisions that are going in two different directions, I need to think about the two decisions and weigh them out by how each makes me feel. If I think of something and it feels yucky or constricted or limited in any way, I know I need to go the other way. But if it feels good and expansive and wonderful, I know that's my inspiration and my intuition telling me to go forward with it. Prior to this, I'd been pushing myself to do more and more at both my day job and my business. And since I work so many hours at the day job and then come home and work on the business too, I was forcing things. I didn't realize it. I was trying to feel good about everything, but there was still an element of force to what I was doing. I was letting my stress and anxiety about leaving my day job and I'm anxious to do that. And so I let that take me into action whenever I wasn't fully aligned. And what that is not a good place to be. And so what I was getting back was feedback from the law of polarity. Because I was not letting the universe do its thing. I wasn't trusting the universe. I wasn't being patient. I wanted results and I wanted them now. And so I pushed and I forced and I received the negative results I did not want. Like I said, polarity. But the thing about polarity is that there are always two sides to every situation. And if you're experiencing the negative side at the moment, it can be very helpful and reassuring to look for the good in it. And I know this can be tricky. I'm not saying it's easy, because it is difficult to know that there can be any good side to having the flu, for example, or losing your job, or having someone break up with you. All of that sucks ass, don't get me wrong. I know it does. But these things in our lives, they tend to be a catalyst into something that is even better down the road. So if something crops up in your life that's a really bad thing, be willing just a little bit to say to yourself, okay, what is the better thing that is coming to me because of this? Because the universe is always trying to bring you your good. And what I discovered about my own personal circumstances was that the universe was trying to tell me to rest and to relax and to release my worry and to listen to the emotional reactions that I was having, because that is my guidance system. That's your guidance system too, if you can learn to use it. The videos not working, for example, taught me that I need to feel good, really, really good, before I take any action. Otherwise, it's not inspired action and it won't get me anywhere. It's just going to throw my head into the wall. And whenever I was falling during exercise, it just made me more aware of my body and that I need to not push it too hard and try and get results more quickly than is safe to do. The flu allowed me to have time off from my stressful day job, which is always a good thing. And it also allowed me to get some much needed rest. And all the stuff with my job, the possible bankruptcy, the no raise, the negative evaluation, taught me to just release my ties to that job. I've been holding on to the job I don't want because that's my source of income. And I've let the fear of the universe, I guess deep down I didn't believe that the universe was going to take care of me if I didn't have this job. So I had this lurking fear that I had to keep the job that I don't want. And now I'm not like giving my notice or anything or resigning, but I am releasing my spiritual ties to that job because I think that's what's holding me to it. And that hasn't been making me very happy. So my goal is to leave that position, and I've been experiencing all this stress and anxiety while there. And in order to release it from my life, I need to let it be what it is without trying to change that job, without trying to control it. I'm just going to let it be what it is, and what happens, happens, and I know it's all for my good. So if the company goes under, it goes under. If I get fired, I get fired. I'm no longer worrying about what happens with that day job because I know ultimately that's not where I want to be anyway. And I trust the universe to help me become that fully self-employed person I want to become. And I trust that those steps are coming for me now. They're coming forward, and it will be lighting the way. I will find my path in that direction. So now, instead of stressing over these recent revelations at work, I just focus on whatever makes me feel good and whatever makes me feel happy, whether I'm at work or not. And when something happens that might stress me out, I just remind myself that this is a temporary situation. I can't control what's happening, but I can control how I feel and react to it. And in a recent podcast, I mentioned the notion of going general. And going general, or looking at the big picture, can give us perspective on what's truly important for us. The tasks I complete in my day job, that doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things to the world. It's just a retail manager job. I'm not saving lives or anything like that. But it does create the feeling that I generate and the vibration that I send out into the world. So that's why it's so important that I stay high and happy and feeling good in that job or whatever I'm doing during the day and whatever I'm doing during the night. Whatever I'm doing, period, needs to be a high vibration, a high frequency, feeling good. Because that's what brings my point of attraction to a higher level and makes what I want come true. The more positive my vibration, the better I feel, and the better those around me even will likely feel. You've probably been around people that, there's a lady I work with, in fact, that she's always this ray of sunshine. She's always laughing and smiling, and I look forward to seeing her every time she works because she is that bright, happy personality. A lot of people are attracted to people like that. They want to be around them. And it's not a physical attraction or anything like that. It's just, it feels good to be around someone that happy. It's just delightful. So that's what I want to be for other people as well. And if I let outside circumstances affect me, then my vibration gets lower and more negative. And that means that the people around me are going to most likely react that way. They're going to have a lower vibration and they're going to react more negatively around me. These things are ripples that have effects in our lives. And those who maybe aren't as awakened as those of you listening to this podcast, or anyone who listens to spiritual principles and knows about them, or is aware, has self-awareness, and follows personal development concepts. The folks out there that just don't know about this stuff, they just think life happens to them. And so when someone's negative and crap comes their way, they just blame it on that outside circumstance, and they just feel crappy, and they don't control their reactions. And it is difficult to do, but practicing that can make a huge difference in your life. So I want to make sure that whatever I do, that I'm bringing people up instead of down. because we are all immensely powerful beings, and that's why our mindsets are so important. Our world is set up in such a way that we can't fully understand something until we experience its opposite. We can't really know that ecstatic joy without knowing sorrow. We can't know what heat is if we've never felt the cold. We don't know what wet is before we felt dry. We don't know what up is without down, or what light is without darkness. But experiencing these things does not mean we're bad people or that we're being punished. It simply means that we're being shown contrast so we can better understand our lives overall. So the next time things in your life seem to be going in a negative direction, pause. Examine them. Look for the positive or bright side. As the old saying goes, when it rains, look for rainbows. When it's dark, look for stars. And the more you do that, the more you'll see the rainbows and the stars. The more you'll see what you want to manifest in your life. Remember, the universe is working for you, not against you. Trust and believe in that, and all your dreams will come true. So I hope you have an empowered day, week, month, and year. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. If you've enjoyed this content or found it helpful, please let me know by leaving a review. I upload podcasts every Wednesday and Saturday, so subscribe to receive these regular updates. Now, go out there and live a more empowered life.